What's poppin', YouTube? Week one is right upon us. So you know what we're going to do. We're going to be diving into our week one rankings for running backs. So let us get into the intro and let's get into it. Is anyone I'm so excited for week one. I'm so excited that fantasy football is back again. And like I said, we're diving into our week one rankings. We have a really bold goal on our channel. We are trying to get to 100 subs by week 2 of the fantasy football season. So if you haven't already, please please subscribe, become part of the fam, join this crew. I'm the only one making content here. I'm trying to produce content for you guys that helps you win your fantasy football leagues. So if you like winning your fantasy football leagues, subscribe down below so that we can continue it on. And let us jump right on into these rankings. So, of course, my RB1 for this week is going to be Jonathan Taylor. The Colts are taking on the Houston Texans. And now I could be doing – it's kind of hard right now to evaluate these defenses. I know we can base it off of talent. And so right now, the kind of the goalpost that I'm using, I'm going to be using the Fantasy Pros rankings for defenses. And currently for this week, they have the Texans as the 32nd ranked defense, meaning that they expect the Texans to not put up many fantasy points and to be really bad. And of course, if they're going to be really bad, that means the Colts are going to be scoring and hopefully have a lead going into the second half, which makes Jonathan Taylor just an absolute smash this week. I mean, he is an absolute smash just as a running back, as he was the RB1 last year. And I think he's going to get off to a super hot start just based on kind of everything that we have seen from Jonathan Taylor last year going into this year. My RB2 is going to be Austin Ekeler. Now, the Austin Ekeler, the Chargers are facing the Raiders. The Raiders are the 30th ranked defense this year, as well as adding on to the fact that this is an in-division game. You're going to have a high-powered offense with the Chargers versus a high-powered offense with the Raiders, which means lots of points, which means lots of receptions for Austin Ekeler, as well as lots of potential opportunities. We don't necessarily know if Austin Ekeler is going to have the goal line work like he did last season, but we're just going to be banking on it, and that's why you draft him. He's your first-round pick, and Austin Ekeler, I think, has the potential to finish as the RB2 this week if everything falls his way, and that's why I'm as my RB2 for this week. My RB3 is going to be CMC. We haven't seen CMC in a minute, so that is super exciting. We're excited to see CMC get back into action, have Baker as his quarterback, and they are going up against the Browns. Now, I love the Browns this week for the defensive purposes. Fantasy Pros has them as the 6th rated defense, meaning they think they're going to do pretty well against the Carolina offense. I just think CMC, of course, is going to be getting somewhere close to around 22 to 26 touches, whether that's through receptions, through carrying the ball. And so I just think we've seen him on a points per game basis put up 25 to 30 points per game the last 2 seasons, even when he played every game. Or he didn't play every game, but meaning when he played in the games, he put up 25 to 30 fantasy points per game. So that is why he's got that high upside. I know we haven't seen it. We've seen the injuries, but we are excited for Christian McCaffrey to get back rolling, to become the guy that we know and believe he is. We got a lot of these running backs. So I'm doing these quick. I'm doing this analysis very quick. So hopefully that helps you. And if you disagree with me right now, put it down in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe right now. My RB4 is going to be Derrick Henry. Now, Derrick Henry is facing the Giants. Fantasy Pros has the Giants as the 24th ranked defense this week. Of course, we don't necessarily know what the mix between run and pass is going to be with the Titans. I mean, they got rid of A.J. Brown this offseason, so now we're running with Robert Woods and Treylon Burks as our main wide receivers. And I just expect Derrick Henry to get somewhere around 25 to 28 touches. Now, do I think that is going to be sustainable this whole offseason or this whole season? I do not. He is getting up there in age. But I do think we are going to see Derrick Henry become the guy that we have seen him be before, at least through the first few weeks of the season, especially if he's healthy and maintains that health. And so that is why I have Derrick Henry as my RB4. My RB5 is going to be Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is taking on the Green Bay Packers. So we got another in-division game. I love that a lot of these games, I know the NFL is a little bit more different than college, but I just love that we're starting off with all of these really great games to start off week one. Green Bay Packers defense, if we're basing them off of the Fantasy Pros and their projections, is ranked the 15th defense this week. So kind of right there in the middle. Dalvin Cook, of course, they got the new offensive coordinator. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot more, which I think is actually going to help Dalvin Cook in the fact that if they're throwing the ball a lot more, there's a lot more scoring opportunities. Then Dalvin Cook has a lot more chances to get in the end zone, which is going to be very valuable for Dalvin Cook because he is going to be getting a lot of that 20 to 20 work. And as long as they do get in that scoring position, I think we could see Dalvin Cook have a major big week and even potentially finish as the RB1. Like all these guys we're talking about right here all have chances to finish as the overall RB1 this week. But I just kind of had to rank them based on how I see it and what my preferences were, even though they might be very, very minimal. Now, I realized that when I just did that this just got really big, but my RB6 is going to be Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon was my RB4 on the whole season for my preseason rankings. Joe Mixon is playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are the 19th ranked defense. I just think this game is going to be a showcase of the Bengals offense compared to what the Steelers are going to be doing there. We don't necessarily know if Mr. Trubisky is potentially going to be the starter. They haven't announced that yet, but he was named a captain, so I assume that means he's going to start. And if the Bengals get out to a really big lead, that means in the second half, it's going to be a lot of running. And of course, that leads more touches to our man, Joe Mixon. And that's why I think Joe Mixon is my RB6 this week. And I don't really think I have to go more in depth about that other than to say he's my RB6. My RB8 is going to be Alvin Kamara. Love me some Alvin Kamara. The Saints are playing the Falcons, and the Falcons ranked on Fantasy Pros the 29th ranked defense for this week. Projected. I just want to say this about Alvin Kamara. I think if he plays this whole season, the value that we got in these fantasy football drafts when you got him in the back end of the first to early second was freaking amazing. And I was too nervous to take him in a lot of my league. I will fully admit that because I do think there is potentially still a chance that we look at the back end of the season, something potentially happens, and all of a sudden you are screwed, other than the fact that he potentially could get injured, because like we've said before, running back is the highest rated injury concern for any fantasy football position. But Alvin Kamara, I think he's all signs are pointing to a full workload. We haven't necessarily seen him. We saw him a little bit with James Winston last season before James Winston got hurt. But we're just excited to see hopefully revamped Saints offense. And if Alvin Kamara, like we said, if he can get somewhere around 80 rushing yards and maybe 30 yards receiving, like we're looking at a very solid week for Alvin Kamara, who also has the potential to be the overall RB1 this week. I just have him a little bit behind the other guys just due to, I think, I just need to see it first from the Saints before I can start maybe moving him up. Because if he performs fully, like he is definitely in that CMC Austin Eckler tier for sure, if he performs fully. And that is where we get to my RB9 for this week is going to be Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb, the Browns are facing the Panthers, which on Fantasy Pros are ranked the 17th ranked defense. Of course, it is the showdown between Baker getting traded away versus the Browns, who got Deshaun Watson, who's out until week 13. So, of course, Jacoby Brissett is going to be starting this week, meaning what are they going to have to rely on? The ground game. And so I am all in on Nick Chubb this week. I was talking about this offseason, talking about how Nick Chubb kind of is just a back end RB1, doesn't have that top potential RB1 upside, but I do think just starting this week, it's going to be super valuable. And like I said, RB8, think that's very, very great ranking for this week, and we'll see what happens. So let me know. Is Nick Chubb RB8? Is that too low for you? Are you taking him higher? My RB9 is going to be Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, like we kind of mentioned earlier, it's an in with when we were talking about Dalvin Cook. They are playing the they are playing the Minnesota Vikings. He plays for the Green Bay Packers. And the thing about the Minnesota defense, of course, we haven't seen their defense yet, but based on Fantasy Pros and their projections, they are projecting that Minnesota will finish as the 26th ranked defense this week, meaning that they are going to be a little bit more towards the bottom of the league this week, which means plenty of touches for Aaron Jones if the Green Bay Packers can score the ball in the receiving game, and also maybe some rushing work there in the second half. I did really like Aaron Jones this year. I know there's a lot of people that are in on Aaron Jones this year to have a huge year, which he always seems to finish as a top 5-6 running back each and every year, even though sometimes he does fall, just depending on how we view him in the fantasy football community. But he is Mr. Reliable, so I'm excited to see Aaron Jones play without Devontae Adams, see what his receiving work is going to be, and what that split share is going to be between him and A.J. Dillon. My RB10 is going to be Najee Harris. So, of course, Najee Harris is playing the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are ranked the 7th ranked defense this week, according to Fantasy Pros. And also, I just want to say, like, I'm using Fantasy Pros right now. I'm not investing in RotoViz yet. We're growing this channel. So maybe once we get to 1,000 subscribers, I will invest in RotoViz. So we'll put that as our big goal. A lot of upgrades will come once we get more subscribers and we're growing as a channel. But like I said, for now, we're going to use Fantasy Pros. But Najee Harris, of course, has new starting quarterback in Mitch Trubisky. We don't necessarily know how much he is going to check the ball down and everything like that he was getting peppered with targets. I know Najee Harris had 75 receptions last season due to Big Ben and his noodle arm not being able to throw the ball down the field. So what are those touches going to be like? We assume he's going to get the volume, but is it going to be as much as last year? And all of those are questions that we're hoping that are going to get answered this week. But that is why I have Najee Harris as my RB10 for this week. I think there's definitely going to be potential for him to move up in the rankings next week. But yeah, this matchup against the Bengals, I like the Bengals defense, so I think it's going to be a little bit more harder on Najee Harris. My RB11 is going to be Lenny Fournette. He is playing the Cowboys. The Cowboys are the 21st ranked defense on Fantasy Pros, and enough to be said. I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they got rid of Antonio Brown this offseason. So now you're stuck with, is Chris Godwin going to be fully healthy for week one? You have Julio Jones, Mike Evans, and then Lenny. And Lenny was catching the ball quite a bit. And I really and finished, of course, as a top 4 fantasy running back last season. And we're excited to see what Lenny puts up again this year. I'm a little bit nervous about Rachaad White. In that backfield, I think Rachaad White is definitely a very talented running back, and he got that 3rd round draft capital. So what are those splits going to be like? I assume early out the gate, Lenny's going to be getting at least 75 to 80% of the work. So no need to worry about that. I'm just talking more in the future, and we're not talking about the future because we're just talking about week one. But that is why I have Lenny as my RB11. Solid per solid. Most people will be having him as their RB2, and that is a great place to be. My RB12 is going to be DeAndre Swift. Definitely do enjoy some DeAndre Swift this year, but they are playing the Eagles. I think the Eagles are probably going to get on them super fast. So this could be a good thing for DeAndre Swift because he does get a lot of that pass catching work, but we don't necessarily know with the new added weapons between DJ Chark, TJ Hawkinson being fully healthy, and Monte Brown. What is that target share going to look like for DeAndre Swift? And because especially if they're down, they're not going to be rushing the ball as much. And I know DeAndre Swift, we think of him in that Alvin Kamara light type mode. A lot of people are projecting him to be ahead of Alvin Kamara this year, but I have him as my RB12 because I first want to see it. I want to see what the Lions offense looks like. Is it improved from last offseason? And of course, they're going up against a little bit harder of a defense and a really great offense. So they're probably going to fall behind. And those are some of my thoughts putting DeAndre Swift as my RB12. My RB13 is going to be Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams is playing the Seahawks. They are ranked the 20th ranked D. What does that mean? The Denver Broncos are going to get up. They're going to score a lot of points. And Javonte Williams is going to get in there in the 3rd and 4th quarter and absolutely grind the ball, get the game to a great standing point. And Javonte Williams, just great running back. Only reason he's not higher is because he's going to be splitting the backfield with Melvin Gordon. But what are those splits going to look like? Because if Melvin Gordon did not resign this offseason, Javonte Williams would have been a 1st round fantasy football pick. And we'd all be glorifying and hyping him up in that same conversation with a Dalvin Cook or a Joe Mixon. But since he does have to split that backfield, he is here in my A tier as my RB13. You probably drafted him as your RB2, so you're feeling very good. So all signs point to go for Javonte Williams this week. My RB14 is going to be James Conner. James Conner is playing the Kansas City Chiefs, which are the ranked 16th defense this week, according to Fantasy Pros. James Conner, of course, is playing with Kyler Murray. No DeAndre Hopkins with the suspension. Zach Ertz potentially may not play. So that means it is all good for Hollywood Brown. Trey McBride might have to step up. Rondell Moore have to step up. But they might have to rely a little bit more on their running game. So potentially James Conner, I could see him outscoring Lenny, Swift, Javonte. I could easily see that, especially if he gets 1 to 2 touchdowns. But what's the role going to be with Benjamin? Darrell Williams, even though he is going to be the RB3, was very solid for the Kansas City Chiefs. So what's the work life going to be like for James Conner? Especially a lot of these guys do not get heavy workloads because depending on what the team needs is, they don't want to wear these guys out super early. And it'll just be interesting to see what that workload's like. But that is why I have James Conner as my RB14. My RB15 is going to be Saquon. Now, I love me some Saquon this year. I'm all signs go. I actually think out of this tier, out of the last 4 guys I mentioned, I think Saquon actually has the highest upside to finish as a top 3 running back for this week. But I had to put him here because we didn't necessarily see it last season. He's playing the Titans, which are ranked the 8th best defense this week, according to Fantasy Pros. And we just want to see what that offense looks like. Like the Giants, of course, they revamped their offensive line. We saw all the crap happening with Kenny Golladay just jogging and Daniel Jones not being able to hit the side of the barn this offseason on Twitter. And we just want to see it. We want to see the better offense. And if it's not better, then we want to just see Saquon getting a lot of the work. And if Saquon's getting a lot of the work, even though it's bad offense, I think we'll start to see Saquon on this, maybe even next week, he'll be getting up into that S tier, higher in the A tier. But I think for this week, we got to just kind of put him here, put those expectations kind of mild, and then see kind of what happens from here. But yeah, I do like me some Saquon. And I really like, I know I've been talking about this, but the fact is, when we're looking at this whole A tier, if you were to argue with me that I'm taking Javonte over Nick Chubb, like I would not debate you. Like these guys are super talented running backs. These are just very minute differences when I'm putting my rankings out for this week that I'm hoping you're experiencing. And maybe you have 3 or 4 of these guys and you're trying to decide which guys I'm trying to put into my lineup. This is going to help you out as we continue on into the season because I will be releasing wide receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks later this week as well. My RB16 is going to be Josh Jacobs. Wasn't Josh Jacobs the guy, Caleb, that was playing preseason week 1? He was. But Josh Jacobs is who's he playing? He's playing the Los Angeles Chargers. Sorry, I'm reading all my stats here right below me on this pad, and I clearly cannot read my own writing. And they are ranked the 14th ranked D. The Jaguars are. And we're just excited to see. I said Jaguars, meant Chargers. we're excited to see, of course, the Herbert versus Derek Carr showdown. There's going to be a high scoring game. So there's going to be a potential red zone opportunities. We're a little bit more scared about what Zamir White is going to do. Of course, they cut Kenyon Drake, which is great, which means it's Josh Jacobs and Zamir White in that backfield. But what's Zamir White's work going to be in correlation to Josh Jacobs? Because to be honest, a lot of us drafted Josh Jacobs in the 5th or 6th round of our fantasy football drafts, and that's amazingly great value. So you might have Josh Jacobs as your RB3 and you're trying to determine whether to start him over some of these guys that you drafted before. But yeah, I really do like Josh Jacobs this week quite a lot as my RB16. My RB17 is going to be Antonio Gibson. Poor Antonio Gibson has been the laughingstock of Twitter this whole offseason. Antonio Gibson is playing the Jags. They're the 22nd ranked defense on Fantasy Pros for this week. I think it's going to be a pretty nasty game. Like I'm not really excited for either of these offenses. And I just think Antonio Gibson's probably going to get somewhere around 12 or 14 touches. And I'm just hoping that the skills that we've seen him on the last few seasons kind of show out. He doesn't fumble the ball, because otherwise we're going to be screwed if we drafted him later in these coming weeks. But super excited for Antonio Gibson this week. My RB17, I think he still finishes under. I think like that his ceiling is like finishing as a top end RB2. I just don't see an RB1 finish out of him. Maybe any week this offseason or this season, just depending on maybe he proves me wrong and he finishes just due to injury. But he's my RB17. My RB18 is going to be Elijah Mitchell. Now let me know, what did I get wrong so far? What have I gotten wrong so far in this video? Like I said, we are only about halfway through, so appreciate anyone that stuck around and or just clicking the timestamps to get to where they need to be. But Elijah Mitchell is going to be my RB18, and they're playing the Bears, 23rd ranked defense on Fantasy Pros. What's Trey Lance going to look like? What is Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle? Like, what's going to be the run pass? I know he's been dealing with a hamstring injury. So what is that going to look like? That's why I have him a little bit lower. I think you could easily make the argument that if he was healthy, you're putting him above Antonio Gibson and Josh Jacobs for this week, but we still don't know. And that's the issue. We still don't know what his health is going to look like. And of course, what that offense is going to look like. Having me a lot of Trey Lance. So we're hoping it's good. We're hoping it's good, but RB18, feel very solid about that. RB19 is going to be A.J. Dillon, playing Minnesota, of course, ranked the 26th ranked defense this week. They're going to have to give the ball to someone. They're going to be giving the ball to Aaron Jones. And who's going to be that second guy? I think it's going to be A.J. Dillon. So excited. We'll see what the rushing shares. If A.J. Dillon could get somewhere in that 50% split with Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones takes more of that passing work, then we're going to be really excited for Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, especially A.J. Dillon as an RB2. Feeling very confident about that because you probably drafted him in the 6th or 7th round. My RB20 is going to be Travis Etienne. I'm really excited for Travis Etienne this year. If you watched any of my videos before talking about my redraft rankings, Travis Etienne's high. I just think we want to see it. We really want to see it this first week. So there's been a lot of talk. Like I have him in a lot of places where I'm trying to debate him or a wide receiver in the flex. And so I would just say, like, if you have a high upside wide receiver, I'm probably picking them this week over Travis Etienne, because Travis Etienne, of course, they're playing the Washington Commanders, which the Commanders, even though their defense has been pretty bad the last 2 years, even though they've had, I think maybe 2 years ago, they had a really good defense. They are ranked 20th this week, according to Fantasy Pros projections. So we're just saying that they are a bottom little level team defensive wise. And so what's the work going to be for Travis Etienne? How does he split with James Conner? We don't know. We're hoping we don't look like fools for drafting Travis Etienne in the 4th and 5th. And of course, losing out on drafting James Robinson in the 11th. I don't think that's going to be the case. No one's ever actually come back from Achilles successfully, even though some people are going to say K-Makers, like it hasn't happened yet. So we're just putting Travis Etienne as our RB20. My RB21 is going to be Cam Akers. And now we've heard reports all offseason that there's going to be a little bit more splits between him and Darrell Henderson. That makes me scared. That makes me think that they saw enough out of Cam Akers and that he isn't fully recovered from that Achilles, because it does take time. Like that injury is crazy. Like I know he returned super fast, but like returning to his full self is going to take a minute, and maybe he might not ever get that explosiveness back that he had before. But I have Cam Akers as my RB21. Going up against the Bills or the 9th ranked D. Of course, it's going to be a high-powered shootout game between Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford. I just think that the Bills are probably going to win this game and are going to be in control of the tempo. And that means a lot more throws for Matthew Stafford. So, of course, we love me some Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson this week. But I'm a little bit lower on K-Makers just because of the splits with Darrell Henderson. We don't know what that's going to look like, as well as the fact that they're probably not going to have that time of possession to be able to run the few extra times to get those extra carries to K-Makers to get him more fantasy points. My RB22 is going to be Kareem Hunt. Kind of talking the same way about Nick Chubb. The Browns are playing the Panthers. The Panthers this season or this week, according to Fantasy Pros, are going to be the 17th ranked defense. Same exact reason I like Nick Chubb, I like Kareem Hunt. Like they're going to have to run the ball. Jacoby Brissett isn't going to be able to throw the ball, so they're going to have to control tempo to win this game. And even when Nick Chubb plays, Kareem Hunt is still finishes as a top end RB2. We're just sliding him a little bit lower because he doesn't have a quarterback that can get him the ball. They're going to be in good positions. And, when the Browns tend to be winning, they kind of pull Nick Chubb out a little bit towards the back end of the third, early fourth, where then Kareem Hunt goes in, gets all those garbage time fantasy points, which we all love. I just don't think that's going to happen this week. So that is why I have Kareem Hunt as my RB22. My RB23 is going to be Rashard Penny in my C tier, dropping it down. They're playing the Broncos D. They're the second best defense. And like I said before, the Broncos, when we're talking about looking at like Javonte Williams, they're going to get ahead. They're going to have control of the game. Like the Seahawks, this is the thing. They're not going to be winning a lot of games. So it's going to be really dependent on Rashard Penny breaking out some long runs, averaging the high yards per carry, because we don't know what the touch situation is going to be between him and Ken Walker when Ken Walker does come back. And that's why I have him as my RB23. I think it's a solid play. Like if you don't have any other better options, maybe you did a hero RB build, sure, go with Rashard Penny. But I'm kind of off Rashard Penny this week, and maybe that'll bite me in the butt. But playing the Broncos and their defense, I am not feeling too confident. My RB24 is going to be Miles Sanders. They are playing the Patriots, which they're ranked. I think this week they're ranked. I didn't write down what their ranking this week was from Fantasy Pros, but I know it's in the top 15. I know that for sure. Miles Sanders, they're just he's playing on a good offense. So depending on what the splits are going to be between him, Kenneth Gainwell, and Boston Scott, like Miles Sanders is still the most talented running back in that backfield. We just haven't seen it. I know he told people not to draft him for fantasy. So if you did draft him for fantasy, hopefully he's your RB3. And if he's your RB3, I'm leaving him on the bench. But if he's your RB2, you sometimes just got to roll with it and hope that he scores a touchdown and maybe shows out. Maybe this is a week that Miles Sanders finally becomes a running back that we were hoping that he would become last season. We're just excited for Miles Sanders. On this channel, we are excited for Miles Sanders, but I don't think it's the week, and that is why I have him as my RB24. My RB25 is going to be Zeke. Now, I am a Buckeyes fan, so you can't call me a Zeke hater. Like, Caleb, he always finishes as an RB1. Like, I hear all that. I hear all that. They're playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, which is ranked the 12th ranked defense. Now, the thing I really want to see with the Cowboys offense is how they're going to address the fact that CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz are the really only two receiving options. And so if they're going to be double covering CeeDee Lamb, they're going to be really shadowing Dalton Schultz, and then stacking the box, forcing the Cowboys to throw. I don't necessarily think that's going to be a great thing for Zeke. And this is the thing. He's going to be having to split some type of touch work with Tony Pollard. And I know that hasn't affected him before. He's always finished as an RB1 every season. But I'm just kind of off him for this week, just with this matchup. Once I see it, I will believe it. He's one of those people that I feel very confident will end the season as a high-end RB2. Just a matter of seeing it and seeing the work that he's put in this offseason. His body looks amazing because he was flexing at the Ohio State game versus Notre Dame. So just saying that. My RB26 is going to be David Montgomery. David Montgomery, of course, when in the previous seasons has been super reliable. He's playing the San Francisco 49ers, which their defense is ranked number 1 this week according to Fantasy Pros, of course, just because the offense looks terrible for the Bears. The offensive line looks terrible. Monty's talented, but is it going to happen this year? Is it going to happen this week? I don't think so. I don't think this is the week that Monty breaks out. And so that is why I have him as my 26 running back. If he's your RB2 and you have no other options, like sure, throw Monty in. But I just like a lot of these guys, like if you have 3 of these guys, like I would just put the top 2 that I'm ranking ahead and throw them in your lineup because we're shooting for upside here, folks. We are shooting for upside. My RB27 is going to be Damian Harris. Now, Damian Harris is playing with the New England Patriots. They're playing against the Dolphins, who are the 10th ranked defense. I just have a feeling that the Dolphins, with how high powered they now have with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki, like they're going to score a lot more points. Now, maybe the defense for the New England will shut them down, but I kind of doubt it because even if, let's say hypothetically, the New England Patriots lead this game into the third quarter and they decide to slow down the tempo and start running the ball a lot more, like it's going to be the Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson show. We're not even convinced that Damian Harris is going to do the thing. Be the man that we saw that he was last offseason, where he scored like a touchdown every game. But I think if somehow Damian Harris can't find the end zone, that's why I have him as my RB27. And we're living on a prayer here with Damian Harris. If he's your RB2, you are living on a prayer. You went hero RB or zero RB, and we are sending our prayers to you as a channel because that is feeling a little bit risky heading into week 1. Our running back 28 is going to be Chase Edmonds. Chase Edmonds is playing, of course, like we just said in the last take with Damien Harris. He is playing the New England Patriots. They are the 13th ranked D. So I I just I don't feel great about Chase Edmonds comparatively. Like why I said that I said in the last take that the Dolphins were going to score a lot more points. So like wouldn't that determine that they would be trying to control the clock? My thing is we haven't seen Mike McDaniel yet with Chase Edmonds. Like what's Chase Edmonds touch share going to be compared to, like all the other running backs in the backfield, because Mike McDaniel does like to do a running back by committee. And so a lot of people are in on Chase Edmonds. Like I think running back 28, like you probably had to draft him as your RB, like somewhere around RB 35 to RB 40. So that is, even this week, it's looking like a profit just from that. But I'm having him as my RB 28 this week, just based on those conditions, not knowing yet. And we want to see it. We want to see it. We know he's a talented running back, but what is that going to look like with Miami Dolphins? If you stuck around for all 26 minutes of this fantasy football episode, like appreciate you guys so much. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. Helps me out, helps the channel out a lot. And we want to welcome you in to the community that I'm building here. We want you to be part of this fantasy, like just fantasy gurus that are getting together, watching fantasy football content, because we want to beat our buddies in all of our leagues. So if you're playing a 12-man league, we want to beat every 11 other guys. If we're playing a 10-man leagues, we want to beat all 9 other guys. I can't believe you didn't find 2 more friends, but now, hey, join the channel. You'll find that 2 more friends. So appreciate everyone sticking around, enjoying this video, and I will catch you tomorrow when we talk about our wide receiver tiers and rankings as well.